In the grand hall, amidst the clinking of glasses and hushed whispers, a young woman stood before the formidable Admiral. Her name was Elara, a name that tasted of sea salt and forgotten storms. The Admiral, a man whose face was a map of countless naval battles, regarded her with a stern, dismissive gaze. He questioned her presence, her right to stand among the decorated officers of the fleet. His voice, a low rumble like distant cannons, demanded to know what a woman like her could possibly understand of war, of sacrifice. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Men, in their crisp uniforms, exchanged knowing glances, their expressions a mix of pity and contempt. They saw her as a delicate flower, out of place in their world of steel and gunpowder. But Elara's eyes, the color of a stormy sea, held a fire that none of them could comprehend. She met the Admiral's hard stare without flinching, her resolve hardening with every condescending word he spoke. "You speak of sacrifice, Admiral?" she began, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the tension in the room. "You see these medals on your chests, these polished boots on the marble floor, but you don't see the real price of your victories." The Admiral scoffed, a humorless sound. "And what would you know of it, girl? Did you polish the cannons? Did you mend the sails?" A wave of snickers followed his remark. Elara's chin lifted. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. With a slow, deliberate movement, she reached for the buttons of her simple, high-collared shirt. A collective gasp swept through the hall. Officers froze, their drinks halfway to their lips. What was she doing? The Admiral's eyes narrowed, his disbelief turning to shock as she unfastened the top buttons. Not in a gesture of impropriety, but of revelation. She didn't expose her skin wantonly. She simply pulled the fabric aside, just enough to reveal the top of a long, jagged scar that disappeared beneath her collarbone. It was an old wound, silvery and pale against her skin, a permanent reminder of a pain he could only imagine. "This," she said, her voice now barely a whisper, yet it echoed in the sudden, deafening silence, "was from the siege of Oakhaven. I was 10. A stray piece of shrapnel from one of your cannons, Admiral." The Admiral's face went pale. Oakhaven was one of his most celebrated victories, a campaign that had earned him his current rank. He remembered the reports, the collateral damage, the civilian casualties that were dismissed as necessary losses. But Elara wasn't finished. Her hand moved lower, pulling her shirt taut against her side. There, running along her ribs, was a brutal tapestry of scars, a series of deep, puckered lines, interwoven with the thinner, angrier marks of crude stitches. They were not the clean wounds of a soldier's sword. They were the marks of survival, of a childhood stolen by the very wars these men glorified. "And these," she continued, her voice trembling slightly with the memory, "are from the time the Corsairs raided our village, the one your fleet was supposed to be protecting. They took everything. They left these souvenirs." The silence in the hall was no longer just quiet. It was heavy, suffocating. The air crackled with shame and a dawning, horrifying understanding. The officers, whom moments before had been sneering, now couldn't meet her eyes. They stared at their shoes, at the tapestries on the wall, anywhere but at the truth she wore on her skin. The clinking of glasses had stopped. The whispers had died. All that remained was the sound of Elara's soft breathing and the frantic beating of 200 guilty hearts. The Admiral stood frozen, his mouth slightly agape. The swagger was gone. The arrogance evaporated. He saw not a defiant young woman, but the ghost of a little girl, huddled in the ruins of a city he had shelled. He saw the face of every civilian, every nameless victim whose life had been a footnote in his glorious career reports. The scars along her ribs weren't just wounds. They were an indictment. They told a story far more profound than any medal or citation could. The story of the real cost of war, etched not on monuments of stone, but on the flesh of the innocent. He looked from the scars back to her eyes. The fire was still there, but now he saw the pain behind it. He saw the strength it took for her to stand there, to bear her soul and her history in a room full of her tormentors' architects. He finally understood. She wasn't an outsider. She was the very heart of the conflict, the living embodiment of the consequences he had so conveniently ignored. His authority, his medals, his reputations, they all seemed hollow, worthless, in the face of her quiet, scarred dignity. Slowly, the Admiral raised a hand, not in anger, but in a gesture to halt any further sound. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He simply swallowed, the sound loud in the tomb-like silence. The woman, Elara, slowly refastened her shirt, covering the evidence of her past, but not the impact it had made. She had not come for revenge or for pity. She had come for acknowledgement. She had come to make them see, and as she stood there, her small frame radiating an immense power, every single person in that hall knew that they would never look at war or at victory in the same way again. The Admiral, the man of iron and sea, finally, quietly, lowered his head. In the face of her scars, he was defeated.